Hello everyone. So today I have with you two of our past rank holder students, Kushagra Agarwal, AIR 20 from the May 2022 attempt, and Anmol Arukia, AIR 49, again from the May 2022 attempt. Both of these students are currently placed with BCG and they have been really good students. I'm pretty sure they will be really good consultants as well. So the idea of today's session.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
So the idea of today's session is to help students who are preparing for their interviews. So we get a lot of questions on, sir, from where should we prepare? What should we refer in terms of our academic content? What should we refer additionally for polishing our overall understanding so that we face the interviews? So Kushagra, welcome. Thank you very much for coming, and I hope you're doing well.
Yes, sir, very well. Thank you. Hope you're doing well too.
I'm doing great. Thank you very much. So I understand you have started at BCG.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, right. So I just started working on from like 2 weeks ago. So past 2 weeks trainings are going on, and from next week is when my actual casework starts. So tomorrow I'll be flying out, and yeah, it's going to be full hectic period from now on. At least that's what I've been told.
So these are probably the last few days where you are seeing the sun, right?
I hope not, sir. Please don't say that. But maybe.
Okay. Yes, so Kushagra, after you cleared, obviously after all the parties were over, I'm pretty sure you would have started with your preparation for the interviews.
Sure.
So can you just help us on how should we prepare? What are the materials we should be referring?
Right, sure. So in my opinion, the best thing to first start with is take a pause and take a complete understanding of the different spheres and the different industries where CA requirements are there, what you could find. What the big mismatch that happens is people are not clear what are the different job profiles available for a CA once you become a CA. So my first step would probably be to talk to my seniors. That's what I did. Talk to my seniors about the different roles and different opportunities that are available, because usually it gets very constrained. Okay, there's tax, there's audit, there's probably something called FP&A, and there's something called due diligence. But in fact, there are a variety of different spheres through where we can enter in. So getting a good senior who can guide us to what they are, and then maybe closing in on our mindset. Okay, this is something that actually interests me. So trying to push towards that will be probably the first step. That'll be very helpful. Now coming to the actual case, any kind of interview prep, there are generally what I saw two types of interviews. One is a general standard interview where you'd probably be told to tell a little bit about yourself. Technical knowledge is tested. There are group discussions, so different rounds. So one of the entities I gave an interview for, the rule was, okay, you give a group discussion. If you qualify from that, then there's a personal interview, then there's a technical interview, and that's how they shortlisted. So that's usually what an industry-based player would be doing when they're hiring, versus a consulting kind of a role. If there are a lot of big four consulting opportunities that are available, and McKinsey, Bain, BCG, they also hire from the CA campus from the last, I think, 2 years, they've really picked up their hiring. They have a completely different interview style. It's called a case interview prep. Now, this is something that'll be very new to us as CAs, and we can talk a little bit. Should I expand on this right now, or should we just take an overview?
Yeah. So you can probably you can continue.
Sure. So right. So talking a little bit about the case interviews, it is completely from a different perspective. It'll be very good. There are a lot of YouTube videos that you should go through before getting into a case interview prep. Sorry, Anmol, what's that site? Case interviews cracked, or
there's case interviews cracked. Then there's also this ex McKinsey guy called Victor Cheng. So he's also quite helpful.
Yeah, please go on.
Yeah, Anmol.
Sorry. So these case preps, I mean, these are not that you are not required to actually solve the business problems that you have been asked. I mean, we are too young to solve business problems at this at this stage, before joining a consulting firm.
That is very reassuring to start with.
The only thing that's being tested is your thought process. So the more structured thought process you have, the better chance of solving a case, there is. So yeah, I mean, they're not really looking for the answers, and there can be various and multiple solutions to a single problem. So it's more about breaking the problem into smaller problems, granular problems, and then solving the smaller problems to finally solve the big, the big problem that the company might be facing. And there are various approaches to this, which can be learned through these YouTube videos. And then there are also consulting clubs of various IIMs who publish these consulting case prep books. So those books are really helpful in preparing for these case interviews.
Okay. And
Right. So what?
Yes, sorry.
Sorry.
No, Kushagra, go ahead, please.
Yeah. So the basic structure of a case interview is it's a one-on-one discussion with the interviewer. It is not one way where you are just simply telling some answers or the interviewer is asking questions and you're replying. It's a discussion where the interviewer will first give you a problem statement of sorts, which is a general business problem that, let's say it's a restaurant business, profitability is down by 20%. How do you solve this? That is probably how a problem would be structured. And post that, you're supposed to ask preliminary questions and try to get an understanding of, okay, what is the overall scenario? Get a broader understanding of the picture. Then you frame a structure in your mind. Okay, if the profitability is low, why could that be? Because of revenue being lower or the cost being higher. And you try, like Anmol said, break it down into further smaller problems. Discuss each step with the interviewer, because all the interviewer wants to see is your thought process, like he said, nothing else. It's all about the thought process. It's not necessarily you come down to the right solution, but just the entire your thinking. And practicing from those case study booklets are very, very helpful. So what we did is partnered up with a person and we took those case study books. One guy used to prepare, he would become the interviewer, and the other person would become the interviewee, and we would prepare those like it would be a simulation of a live case interview that would have been taking place.
Okay. That's so basically what they're looking for is the thought process in general, the structure that is there in your mind, and we should not be focused on getting the right answer necessarily. Okay, so the approach is really important. Also, Anmol, when we are looking at, let us say, a general interview setup, let us say where there is group discussions or where there is, let us say, your regular personal interviews, any materials that a student should refer to before their campus interviews or other interviews, you recommend? Any materials that you should go through? Let us assume they're looking for finance or let's start with finance, let us say, because I think you are looking at finance and consulting.
Right. So to start with, I think a very important point is to know your CV well. Many times what happens is we have written something in our CV, but then when we are asked on it, we tend to forget, what we had done in the past. So you should really know your CV well. That is a very important point. And also the HR questions. So of course, the HR questions don't need to be prepared. It's something that you do, that is spontaneous. But you should have a broad structure in your mind as to what am I speaking about. Coming to the technical aspect of it, in finance interviews, I think the knowledge of SFM is quite important. And that too, the basic concepts of capital budgeting. So you might be, there also questions on decision making, for example, and general FR concepts that you would have learned in the course. So we don't need to really go through the entire course altogether. But if we are, so for example, you'll be given various short problems, and then maybe you'll ask to calculate the cash flow. There'll be, so for example, in CA, we would be preparing for a 16-mark question, but which are, which is pretty lengthy. But in the interviews, they would just ask you a small question, for example, how do you come to the cash flows so what does free cash flow comprise of? So you should be able to, give them various components of it. How do you reach the cash flows from the profits? So although we tend to know all these basic stuff, but in the interview process, we tend to forget these minute concepts. So these are the basic, I think, things that we should be looking at before going for a finance interview.
And Kushagra, you want to add something?
Yeah, I would love to add something. I completely agree with what Anmol said. One more thing that I thought was useful, and this actually I faced during one of my interviews, is you should have a broad understanding about the industry your client is working in, right? For example, if you're going for a interview which is not a big four or a generic service provider, and you're going for a particular company interview, you should get a knowledge a little bit about the industry. If possible, do go through the management discussion and analysis report that is there in usually all of their annual statement. It is something that is, and probably get a broad understanding of their finances, right? What is their total balance sheet, asset base, or what is their overall profit? Just broad numbers to understand where they are in the market. Because I was asked one of the questions, okay, do you know who the leading player in the X market is, who the leading player of the X market is in the country? And I was struggling to find, and they're like, we are the leading players in the X market in the country. So I'm like, that basic knowledge of what the company is doing is very important when you step into. And then I completely agree that SFM, FR, they are something that are tested. You can go through a broad conceptual understanding should be strong. You don't need to know the specifics very well, but conceptual understanding is what they do check.
So that's a very important point. So if a student is actually going into, let us say, a pharmaceutical company interview, it is important that you go to the annual report, specifically the MD&A section.
MD&A section.
Management discussion analysis and the director's report, and have a good understanding of the broad sector, right? Maybe broker reports, if you Google up and if you find probably a sector report and you can just glance through them, even that would probably help, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And also want to add one more point. So what I've experienced a lot of times is sometimes the interviewer is grilling you. Basically, he or she is testing as to, how are you responding to questions that you are not supposed to know. So I would rather say you should not end up bluffing anything. I mean, if you don't know an answer, you should try and deduce that answer. Show the interviewer that you are trying to deduce it, but you are not sure of it. But if you don't know it, it's better to admit that you don't know it rather than just giving a random guess.
Completely agree to this. Completely agree.
And interviewers are open to the fact that a student or a candidate says, "I don't know."
Yeah, I don't know is much better than saying just on the spot trying to make up an answer and make up a concept. That will never fly. That is a worse situation to be in. Yeah.
Okay. So if you were to prepare, let us say, for a group discussion, so we say from ACADS, we will look at financial reporting, maybe something like capital budgeting for project planning, decision making is important. Specific industry knowledge in financial reporting, I think certain specific standards like financial instruments, leases, revenue, etc. will be tested a lot, and industry knowledge for, let us say, the sector or the company in which you are. But what about group discussions? Maybe how do you prepare for a group discussion? And is there any material or practice sessions that can be done?
Sure. So group discussions, ideally, there is, I don't think there's any material you can go through. What group discussions generally entail is some current affair or current topic that's going around. So maybe be updated a little bit about what's going around in the world, and you should have opinions about them. The most important thing in group discussions is to participate. Make sure that while you're being respectful of others' time, don't try to lose yourself in just letting others speak over you. That is something that's a little balance that you need to find, where you're able to put your point. At the same time, you're not trying to exude that, okay, I'm the only one who's going to be speaking. So that balance is important. Material wise, I'm not very sure if there's something specific maybe Anmol can add, but current knowledge about what's going around in the world, usually group discussions are based on those topics.
Anmol, anything you
want?
I'd
just like to, So what I want to say is, as Kushagra rightly mentioned, it's important to participate, but many times for the sake of participating, we tend to speak over others. I mean, that is absolutely nothing that should not be done. I mean, because that shows that you are not, allowing other people to speak.
Team player.
Yeah, you're not being a team player. So that is very important. And group discussions can particularly be of two types. I mean, it can be on abstract topics or some general knowledge topic, or it could be a case study group discussion session. So for example, we had a group discussion session for a company we all were interviewing, and we were given you can say a CA based costing case study, wherein we had to all discuss the problem at hand and then come to a necessary solution for it. So you can also get a technical kind of a group discussion wherein you'll be also tested on your soft skills and your technical skills.
So in GD, quality over quantity is more important. And maybe it can either be an abstract topic or probably a technical case based thing.
Yeah, right.
Okay. And one more thing, I mean, did you guys actually approach the company? So one place where you can actually get placements is through the campus. But if, let us say, I'm having a campus, but I also want to, let us say, I have, let us say, an inclination towards investment banking or equity research or consulting, let us say. Are there any sources, avenues, firms, consulting firms, or any websites where students can connect, where they can get such opportunities?
Sure. Should I? Yeah, I'll just go ahead. So there are a couple of recruitment agencies that you can definitely reach out to. I think there's one is Fast Careers. They are a lot of companies who are not hiring through campus hire through Fast Careers. So that's a portal you should register yourself on. I think Phenom is another portal. I'm not very sure. Another thing that I wasn't actively doing, but I saw a lot of my friends doing, and which actually yielded a lot of results, was they were going through LinkedIn. There is a portal specifically on LinkedIn for jobs, and where you can filter out basis the requirement, what is going on and what kind of job opportunities are available. And they actually found a job through LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is also a very good resource where you are just trying to find a job from different profiles. You can directly reach out. Most people welcome that. You can go on any kind of online job portal. There are also direct websites there's an HR Connect on the websites of different companies. You can connect through that also. So you shouldn't always wait for a company they might not be hiring because they're not in the campus. You can definitely reach out to them. You can reach out to people through LinkedIn. You can find people who are working in company X, right? And you can just maybe reach out to them. Hey, is there an opportunity right now in your entity? Can I appear? Could you pass along my CV to the HR? You can find those avenues as well. You don't need to necessarily wait for a campus.
And people do respond, right? So maybe it's not that everyone would, but at least even if
exactly
1 or 2 out of 10 respond, that's a good hit rate.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And generally, people are really helpful on LinkedIn. So the only thing is, how are you approaching them? So just sending a connection request might not be adequate. I mean, if you add a personalized note in the connection request itself, I have seen people tend to reply to those messages because you are putting an effort, then they do appreciate the effort that you are putting in. So maybe just tweak a little in how you are approaching people on LinkedIn, and they'll definitely help you out. And quite many times what happens is, instead of reaching out to senior people on LinkedIn, whose LinkedIn connection request might already be bombarded with many people, it's better to reach out people at your level who are already working in that profile. So these people not only help you to get in the job, that is refer you to the HR, but also explain you the on-ground process that they're going through. So the job descriptions sometimes are not clear. They say something, and when you actually speak to a person working over there, you end up knowing that it is a completely different thing. So it's better to actually speak to the people working in that profile and understand what is going on.
So even if you don't have a lot of contacts, approaching people through LinkedIn can be a good opportunity with personalized messages, depending on what the person is working at, and not necessarily senior people, even junior people can work. Okay. And just one more thing, when we're looking at resumes, do we see that it is necessarily to be a one-pager? Do we need to add skills? Or do we see 2 or 3 pager resumes, or you prefer a 1-pager resume? And any specific tips for a student who is preparing their resume? Kushagra, Anmol, you can start.
Yeah. Sorry. I think from the people that I have spoken to, people usually do prefer 1-pager resume because everyone is swamped with work. So they would want to look at a crisp resume which specifies all that they have done in a single page. And right, regarding the skills, so many people, including me, before I got to learn this the hard way, we tend to include skills and which are not relevant for the job. For example, I would write something that I had done in my school, but which would not really add value to my resume at this point in time. So maybe looking at the job and tweaking your resume a little bit to understand if this is something that the interviewer would actually want in my resume.
Okay. Sure.
Yeah,
Right,
Kushagra,
completely
if you can
agree
add.
with them. Just the one pager thing, I think we should stick to that because we're very early in our careers, right? We don't have any job experience, so everything is probably from our schooling and maybe a little bit about articleship. So one pager, it should ideally be a one pager document. Coming to the skills bit, ideally should not include Excel, PowerPoint, and basic office suite documents because functions because that a lot of people or probably everyone would have. So that's not adding any value to your resume. Another important tip that one of my seniors gave me is highlight important stuff in your resume. What you do is probably what you've done in your articleship. You've written sentences on sentences, right? People usually just glimpse through it because thousands of resume to go through. Highlight or bolden those things which are things you need to bring focus to. And ideally, the three important aspects in a resume would be one, your academic qualifications. Second would be your work experience or your articleship experience. Third would be in extracurriculars. Again, there's a division. One is positions of responsibility. That is something a lot of firms like to look at if you have held any accountable positions in probably college fests or any kind of associations, position of responsibility sector. And last is extracurriculars, where you add your sports and sports or any competition that you've participated in. And these things carry a lot of weight. So people generally think that extracurriculars and position of responsibility, specifically extracurriculars, if your acads is very good, they don't matter. But personally, I've seen friends who are very, very good in acads, but they did not fill their extracurriculars very well. They did not get shortlisted. So that also needs to be taken into consideration while making a resume. And lastly, is to definitely get it reviewed. If you have someone, or just simply, again, the LinkedIn way is a good way. Someone just reached out to me, if you can just review my resume, and I was happy to do it. So find people on LinkedIn, probably a year older than you or whatever. If you can get someone to review your resume, they can give you smaller tips, to fine-tune it a little bit. That's always helpful.
Okay. And it really helps again to work on your LinkedIn profile as well. So obviously it has to be updated, but you need to give a lot of descriptions and detailed reviews within your LinkedIn profile, or your academic qualifications, etc. would suffice.
Ideally, I think just the basics is okay. I don't think posting or making a lot of details about what you did in a particular firm or entity is required. But yes, it should definitely be updated as to your academic qualification and professional background.
I think updating LinkedIn would come in at a later stage in your career, wherein there's only maybe one opening, and that single opening would be filled in by someone, by the HR who find someone on LinkedIn. But at this stage, I think there's for CA freshers like us, there's usually mass recruitment. There are recruitment drives. So I don't think they would be looking at each and every LinkedIn profile, and they would simply go through the CVs. And regarding CVs, I would also want to include one point in addition to Kushagra's. It's better to include facts and figures. So, for example, if you have been involved in an audit, let's say, of a listed bank. So instead of saying that you have audited a listed bank, you could say that I have audited a bank which had an asset size of this many crores, this many billions. So the thing is, your resume might be, looked at only for like 5-10 seconds. But if that figure is included and it is boldened, then it might catch the eye of the recruiter, and you might get shortlisted because of that fact or figure.
I think this has been fairly helpful. Any last tips that you would like to share with students?
Sure. I just have one point, which is more from a softer perspective rather than the technical aspects. Companies do like to see if you are a culture fit. This is something that's been coming up in the past 2 years, maybe, but companies do want to see if you are a culture fit. Always present your nicest self in front during an interview. Be extremely smiley, be extremely humble, be very, very, very nice. Like, it's okay to be a little underconfident and not to know every answer than to sound arrogant and to show off that you know what you're talking about.
Okay.
It is okay to be wrong. Just it's very, very important to be nice during an interview. Just present your best self.
And even have you faced any stress interview where maybe you are facing?
Anmol has a very good story to tell for this.
Okay.
So there was this interview in an investment bank, which ran for like 40 minutes, and the entire 40 minutes whatever answer I gave, I was cross-questioned on it, and I was blatantly told that this is wrong. You need to get your facts straight.
Okay.
So this was a 40-minute stress test, and I legit was so sad after the interview that I have never been through such a thing in my life. But
Okay.
later on, I got to know that I had qualified for the next round in the interview process. So this is also an important fact to know, that even if your interview goes bad, it might be, the want of the interviewer. He would be stress testing you. So you should not feel sad just after the interview itself. And one more fact I wanted to highlight is, after the interviews, the interviewer generally asks you if you have any questions. You should have good questions in your mind. I mean, if you are really interested in the job and the job profile, you should show to the interviewer that you are keen and you are not just any random person who has come for an interview and might probably not join even if he or she is selected. So you should have good questions, and you should basically intrigue the interviewer, and they should think that, yeah, this guy is actually wanting to
Genuinely
work for me
interested.
and and the organization. Exactly.
That's very relevant. So thank you very much, Kushagra and Anmol, both, for spending your valuable time and sharing the insights. If there's anything else, we'll definitely get in touch with you as well. And all the very best for your professional careers ahead. Wish you all the very best and good luck. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much for
Happy
having
to
us.
help. Thank you.
Happy to.